Hi, Casey Cobb here. Today we're going to be making a traditional Italian dish, risotto. You only need 4 basic ingredients to make a pretty good risotto. You need some Italian long grain rice, you need some wine, you need some broth, and a sauteed vegetable. Today we're going to be using some brown onions. However, the nice thing about risotto is you can go in your fridge, you can go in your pantry, you can find some spices or some things that are going to add some nice flavors to it and add them in. It's all about making something special and unique and something that's going to taste pretty good. Now, by the end of this show, you're going to understand a bit about the history of risotto, you're going to know how to make a pretty good risotto, and you're also going to understand why we're using all the ingredients we're using. The first step to this whole thing, though, is taste the wine that you're actually going to be adding. The essence of risotto is adding broth and wine to this rice, and it's going to absorb into it. You're going to get a lot of absorption that's going to go and flavor the rice itself, but the rest of it that doesn't get absorbed into is going to evaporate down and concentrate. And it's going to add a lot of flavor, make almost a sauce around the rice, which is what risotto is. So you want to make sure those flavors are nice. Today we're using ACADÉMIE Wine Blend No. 1 because it's got a lot of earthy, oaky notes, a little bit of black cherry in there. It's a great tasting wine that's going to add a lot of nice elements to the actual dish itself with the black olives we'll be adding to the dish. So with that, let's make some risotto. Rice made its way to Italy in the 14th century by way of trade with the Arabs. As it turned out, the flat and humid lands of northern Italy were perfectly suited for growing rice. Risotto, as it's known today, however, is said to have been invented a couple hundred years later when a stained glass artisan named Valerius was tasked with making a stained glass window in the Duomo of Milan. But as he worked, the townspeople made fun of him, attributing the brilliant colors in the stained glass to coloring from the spice saffron, rather than from his skill. He sought revenge on the townspeople by attempting to sabotage a wedding feast by putting excessive amounts of saffron in the rice. But to his surprise, the rice was a huge hit, and thus spawned risotto as we know it today. Here's a flavor chart of the risotto we'll be making today. You may want to pause this video to get a good look at it. The areas with the most color are the flavor qualities that are most intense. The wine, black olives, thyme, and sage we'll be using in our recipe all work together to complement this flavor profile. But enough with all this background, let's see what we'll actually need to make our dish. We'll need 5 ounces of Italian long grain rice. You can find that in the pasta section of your supermarket. We're also going to need some extra virgin olive oil, 1/2 of a white onion diced, approximately 32 ounces of beef broth, 3 ounces of sliced black olives, 3 tablespoons of fresh thyme chopped, 3 tablespoons of fresh sage chopped, and 8 ounces of ACADÉMIE Wine Blend No. 1. First, you'll want to prep your pan with olive oil. Add your onions and saute on low heat for 7 to 8 minutes. Bring your wine to a low simmer using your smaller pan. Stir the onions well before covering. You'll then cover your onions and cook on a low heat for about 7 to 8 minutes, stirring about once every minute. Remove the lid and verify that the onions have been browned. Transfer the onions to a separate plate. This is to prevent them from becoming bitter as you cook your rice. Add more olive oil to the pan. Then add your 5 ounces of rice to the pan. You'll need to thoroughly mix this rice to ensure that it's completely covered by the oil. Add your heated wine to the pan and get ready for an explosion of aroma. On a medium-low heat, add the onions back to the pan. Then thoroughly mix the rice, onions, and ACADÉMIE Wine Blend No. 1 together. We'll then need to start heating our broth, which we'll soon add to this mixture. Once your wine has been completely absorbed by the rice, you'll then want to add your heated broth. Slowly pour your broth into the rice, wine, and onion mixture and stir together well. We'll then want to add a lid to the top of our pan to allow the wine to absorb into the rice. While this is happening, we'll begin heating another 8 ounces of broth. After about 15 minutes, remove the lid and verify that all the broth has been absorbed by the rice. If it hasn't, stir until it is. You'll then add your heated broth to the pan. We'll need to thoroughly stir the broth into the rice and continue to stir until this broth has been completely absorbed. Meanwhile, begin heating another 8 ounces of broth. Once the broth has been completely absorbed, add your new batch of heated broth to the mixture. Begin heating another 8 ounces of broth. Now we'll need to add our olives to the mix. Stir thoroughly, and then add your thyme and sage. Once the broth has been completely evaporated, add your last batch of heated broth to the pan. Stir the rice until the broth has been completely absorbed by the rice. We'll then need to check our risotto to make sure it's of the proper consistency. It should be thick, but not too thick. Then you're ready to plate and serve. And there you have it. That's really all it takes to make a pretty flavorful risotto. So with that, enjoy the meal, enjoy the wine, and of course, bon appetit.